What is up? We're back. It's another day in the shop working on the Z. This is tucking the engine bay of the LS300ZX. There are 5 parts that we are focusing on in this project: the wiring, the cooling, the lines, the batteries, and relocating the accessories. In the last video, I was attempting to install the batteries in the trunk unsuccessfully. Dude, I'm gonna lose it. Why? Had some broken J-hooks.
Damn.
For real. On that note, we mounted the battery jump terminals. I love those right there. That's great.
I think that's like the best spot for it.
And made some decisions, and Lucas made a bunch of progress with the wiring harness. It is looking a lot simpler already. Today, I got a bunch of energy. I'm ready to hit the ground running. I am determined to, by the end of the day, have these batteries mounted, wired up, and design some brackets for both the power steering pump and for the relay box to mount where the battery originally was. And then Lucas is gonna keep working on the wiring harness. So I don't waste any time. Without further ado, let's jump into it. So in the last video, this J-hook broke. So this setup with the J-hooks going through the boards is obviously not gonna work. I've got a different setup about to arrive today. And while I'm waiting on those to arrive, I'm gonna go ahead and start making the board that's going to hold the amp. So first thing's to get the holes drilled for all the wiring to come through. Then once we get everything drilled out, we'll do a little test fit. So here is how that board is gonna fit in here. And then these brackets will screw into the back of the sub to hold this solid in place. And that should be all it needs, because the sub is gonna be screwed down to these boards. And then just with these 2 brackets, it should be good. Now that I know that everything fits right, I'm gonna go ahead and paint the board. While that first coat is drying, I'm going to install some brackets to attach the sub to the floor in the trunk. And as I said earlier, the rods coming up through the boards is not going to work. They really need to be mounted from above the boards. So here I'm going to go ahead and take out the batteries and remove the J-hook rods from the bottom of the board. Next, I'll put this battery back in place so that I can figure out exactly where the tray needs to be mounted and where the wires need to come through the board. And then while I'm waiting for the trays for the battery to arrive, I'll go ahead and start messing with designing the power steering pump bracket, which just needs to be able to hold this power steering pump in the front corner of the bumper. And go straight back there. So I found a 3D model of the power steering pump online, made sure that the measurements matched real life, and then I started designing a bracket. Then I'll need to get some exact measurements of the mounting holes on the car. So here, as I lean in and perfectly block the camera so that you can't see anything that's going on, I'm going to use my micrometer to accurately measure the spacing between each of the bolts. And as I'm taking measurements, I am drawing up what I need for this bracket. Then I'm holding up the power steering pump so that I can see exactly what kind of space we need between the mounting holes on the car and the mounting holes on the power steering pump, so that I can create a bracket that holds it where it needs to be. And here I even connected the power steering line so that I can make sure it's coming out at the right angle to be able to go through the hole in the chassis where I want it to. Alright, so here is roughly what I drew up, and I was going to leave some space here for the lines to come through and just hopefully make this really beefy here, but I wound up just leaving an opening right here for the lines to come through. That way I have a little bit of support over on this side, and then I'm gonna see how thick I can make this that my brake will be able to bend, because the bend line's gonna be right where that slot is. My brake needs to be able to bend basically 7 inches of material. So whatever the thickest material that my brake can bend at 7 inches is probably what I'm gonna get for this. So it turns out the thickest material that I could do was 16 gauge mild steel. So that's what I'm doing. And this is what the bracket looks like as a sort of a 3D model. And then it's going to have 2 bends, and you can kind of see the witness marks where that's gonna be. So it's gonna be a bend across these 2 little notches right here, and then a bend across here. This one is going to be a little bit more than a 90 degree, and then this one's going to be just like a few degrees to bend it back so that it can hold the power steering pump. So that is ordered, and it will be here on Tuesday when we're working on the car next. So I'll be able to show you that bracket in the next video. Oh my gosh, dude. The second I turn the camera on, I'm already messing stuff up. Okay, so we're getting some clusters of wires bunched up over here for different things. And this is starting to clean out. We got barely any wires coming over here compared to the fat, thick cluster of wires before. 2 wires up here. And then these are just individual things that we need to run where they need to go and keep it all clean. It's gonna be beautiful. Same sort of thing is happening over here. There's still more to go, but... And then what are you moving stuff that's gonna run directly across up here?
For the most part, which I think I've come to the realization that this is for the strut, because it's a turbo car. These
Yeah, so it had...
There's 2 connectors that look just like this, which are the same as this turn signal and indicator plugs.
You could adjust the dampening of the factory suspension.
Yep, that's what that goes to.
Yeah, there's like a switch. You can put it in the suspension in sport mode or comfort. It's hilarious. These have spots for the J-hook to go in on the side there, so we don't have to go through the wood. And I got new J-hooks. It's in the front left of that drawer is all my sockets. The main drawer. That's sexy. Next, I'm drilling the holes for where the wiring will come through for the batteries. And I forgot to record me finishing painting this, but here it is completely painted and ready to be mounted. So now I'm going to be putting these brackets on. Then I'm going to take the board and put it in the car so that I can run the wiring through it. Yo, how do I get this thing off the end of the wire? It's crimped on there.
How to get it off?
Yeah.
You cut it, bro. It's on there. Like, you can't get that off now. We have to cut that.
I don't know why I put it on, because there's nothing back here that needs it. I got such limited wire back here, dude. I need something stronger. Now that I've got the amp mounted and the wiring run to the amp, I can run the big wiring to the breaker and to the batteries. And this was quite challenging because this wire is so thick and heavy. I had to detach the breaker and run the wire up through, and then it still was such a pain. Now it literally turned out that I had exactly enough wire to run up to the breaker, over to the one battery, and then over to the other battery. But I didn't know this while I was recording, so I was being very careful to use as little wiring as possible. Here you can see where I've run the initial wire down from the breaker into where the first battery is. Then I cut the wiring to make a cable to go over to the other battery. Ran both of these ends up through the one side so that they can connect to the lug on the positive on the first battery, and then ran it up through the hole on the other side. And then I passed the power wire for the amp up through that same hole so that it can connect on the lug for the positive on the driver's side battery. Then I've got these two negative ground cables that I'm going to connect to the chassis here in the trunk. With the ground connected, I'm now going to see how I'm going to pass it through this cover. I wound up snipping out a couple pieces of plastic so that there was a larger hole for the cable to pass through. Then I did the same thing on the other side, and then I snipped the lugs off the other end of the wire since it'll be going into the lugs on the battery. Speaking of the lugs on the battery, here are the fancy new lugs I got for the batteries. So I'm going to slice the rubber off the ends of the wires so that I can fit it into the lugs and get it tightened down nice and snug. Then with both ends attached, it's ready to connect to the battery. So I'll do the same with the negative side and then repeat it on the other side and we're good to go. Some of you might be asking, why do I need two batteries? Lucas is asking the same question. But the answer is that the engine is so big and the supercharger uses so much horsepower to just turn over that we need two batteries. Alright, dude, come look at the finished trunk real quick. It's so crazy. All wired up.
Nice. Maybe like turn this one
Yeah,
a bit more.
The problem is the nut to tighten it is on this side.
What?
I know.
Also, this is connected, right?
Well, but the main cable is
okay,
off, yeah.
Okay. You don't have like a little Allen? You can make that work. I believe in you.
Maybe.
Also, you didn't get all the strands in the negative.
Dude, yeah, I couldn't really on any of these. It like wouldn't stay, but yeah. But dude, it's so clean. Yeah, I want to test and I want to just grab a multimeter and test the terminal up there and see up front. Test it and see if it does have power once I turn it on.
Oh wait, so implant voltmeter, that's wild.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, here. I'm gonna flip this on. You wanna stand back? All right, I'm flipping it on. So this is the new main power for the car. And it's also a giant, it's like a breaker. It's like a breaker in a house. It'll trip instead of burning out. Are you ready? All right, I'm turning it on. Hey, we got 12 volts. Nice, so I did not wire it up wrong and we're getting 24 volts.
Not on fire yet.
And it's not on fire, so that's good. Man. All right, I'm turning it off now. All right, buddy, let's see what you got here. Are you working on headlight harness?
Yeah.
It's almost done, where that little section is.
This little section.
Dude, that's sexy. That's better than factory.
Oh yeah.
Factory was pretty low bar though, so at least after 35 years. All right, so headlights connected back there. So clean, dude. And then,
We could honestly put the low beam on the common ground because that'll just make things easy. And then a horn wire, which is going to run back to the horn relay. And then the power steering pump will be over here as well.
so everything that's running up there is pretty much running up there already. And everything here is either going to be deleted or run across inside the wiper cowl. Is that accurate?
Kind of.
Kind of.
So there's still like 4 or 5 wires that need to go through here.
Okay, 4 or 5 more
Yeah,
wires, but just
so
4 or 5.
Like this one here, this was the running light,
Mm-hmm.
and so it comes from the car, and it needs to be on the same power sides, and it just makes it a little bit easier when you put it crimp on that way.
Dude, what's wrong with that?
No, look at this, because I'm trying to figure out what the f this is. There's an addafuse to an addafuse.
Dude.